And we're live. Phil Tarrant, Tom Panos, Real Estate Exposed. Look at that. We've even got our own little sort of intro into it now. It's the same every week. Tom, getting stuck into it. We're not messing around. Into the details, into the facts. We're gearing you up. I've got the big winding thing out like a toy. I'm going to start winding it up. Get you fired up. Get you angry. Get you ranting. Get you crazy. Get you passionate. Get you Tom Panos up. Everyone knows what I mean by that. How are you this week?
Good, Phil. How are you?
Good. There's good news coming out of the news. Tom, is your real name Tom or Thomas?
Neither. It's Anastasios.
Anastasios.
Don't ask me why. So my real Anastasios. So my real name of Greek I'm of Greek origin, and the Greek name I've given is called Anastasios. And just for the fact that you asked, Anastasios is the Greek word for risen. So my name day is in fact on Easter, which is Easter is when Christ rose, right? So as Peter says, TAS, T-A-S, that's what they should have called me, TAS. But all I remember, Phil, is I went to Belmore South Primary School, and when I went to school that day, I remember my mum said to me, "You tell them your name is Tom, right? Tom. Look at this. It's a great talking point. Everyone's jumping in. Ella Anastasi, right? Which means, come on, Anastasius." So that's my name. But I got to tell you, it's Tom. You can call me Tom.
Can't I call you Anastasios Panos?
Mate, that is a pretty good effort for your first go at it. You're good at languages, aren't you?
Not really. I'm not too bad at England, but, mate, I'll tell you what, Tom, my fact-checking isn't too good. I made a real faux pas last week talking about McGrath results. I was using 2020 numbers instead of 2021. The results were even better. No one picked it up, thankfully. I don't think anyone watches this. But I gave you a call that evening going, "Tom, something's not right. You know, something didn't add up." And I looked at it and I went, "We used 2020 numbers." My first broadcast of student journalism, mate.
Yeah, well, I've got to say, good editorial work there, clears the record up. And it was a classic case of, not that it's a big deal, but it's a classic case of, and that's what happens in media now. And you've got a story on, right? And I cop this with the Telegraph all the time, and what happens is you're on a story and then there's a link and then you click on the link. And what happens is often that link is not a direct connection to that exact story. So before you know it, and this is something you didn't get with print media, but you do get with digital media, and that is that you can have multiple stories linked to that one story, right? Whereas in print media, you become pretty myopic and it's just the one story. But regardless, they had a sensational effort. Having said that, I also saw the agency gave out their results during the week. You reported on those as well. They were very strong figures. I think, Phil, the truth is, even though we've been in a world of chaos, real estate has actually been incredibly resilient. And in fact, some people have actually had significantly better results than previous years. By the way, everyone that's coming on, good Sarah Bell, of course, from Rita. Janelli's there. We got a lot of Melbourne agents. By the way, keep your head up, Melbourne. Keep your head up. Not long to go. Maybe a month, could be a bit longer with the premier that you've got. Is a little bit more on the conservative side. But Phil, it's a little bit more upbeat, don't you think? Don't you feel that the media is sort of, we can see the finish line now, Phil?
I think so. I want to get into that today, Real Estate Exposed, and the McGrath results, just to set the record straight. Net profit handed down by McGrath CEO Eddie Law, 19 million, Tom, which was, quote, a significant turnaround compared to the FY20 profit, which is what we mistakenly spoke about when the group had achieved net profit of just 0.7 million. And this is about Real Estate Exposed, Tom. Elephant in the room. You know both these businesses pretty well. We're talking about the agency, which is one of the rising stars in real estate, listed a couple of years ago now, or maybe a year and a bit ago. Jeff Lucas at the helm, CEO, ex-McGrath CEO. Mate, you know both businesses, and they're not too far from each other. They must be pretty competitive there between them two.
Look, they are competitive. They are competitive. Obviously, some of the personnel that are at the agency were once at McGrath. And there are, some of the agents. I think some of the agents have worked in both groups and they've moved around. But, they had decent results. Of course, that business there, the agency also has a very strong representation in Western Australia. They've got a very big business there in Western Australia. But one of the great things about publicly listed companies, Phil, is that you actually get to see under the bonnet, right? Which you don't get. And I think they're the only two in the real estate business that are publicly listed. We don't get the visibility, of course, of, what the Ray Whites and, LJ Hookers and Rain and Horns, C21s. We don't get real visibility on what they're being like, but they report very strong revenue growth. But Phil, 100% great results, good businesses, and I think that I have the view, Phil, that we're in for the halcyon days for the next few years in real estate. I've come to
that. Yeah, I think that needs to be one of our points, Tom, and I'll scribble down some notes here to give us shape as this particular chat, what will happen to real estate in the next few months. Maybe that's sort of connected in with where we're going, Tom. Halcyon days in real estate. I've seen some information coming out of particularly the New South Wales State Premier today. I think we've already reached the milestone of 70% vaccinations for the first jab in New South Wales. There's already talk, and I think it even starts tomorrow, of starting to ease some of the restrictions, unlimited exercise in New South Wales now, rather than the 1 hour. Now, most people might go, well, so what? But I think there's a clear pathway now, Tom, to what the future looks like. I'm quite buoyed by it because, as you know, we're an events business amongst all the other things we're doing, and we're hoping to do in-person events this year. We've spoken about that. So we now have this gateway. Thumbs up, big pat on the back to all New South Wales residents, 70% vaccination so quickly. Maybe at the front end of this particular version of the pandemic 2.0 wasn't handled too well, but I tell you what, they're getting these shots into people's arms.
Extraordinary effort, extraordinary, beat the deadline by a long way. So now, 7 million jabs. This thing about the 80% mark, that's going to be, crushed. So we're in the game. And I tell you what, we came slow off the blocks. As I said before, it was a stroll out, not a roll out, but it just goes to show, Phil, when you've got intent, when you've got a goal, when you've got a target, when you actually keep reminding people, the main thing is vaccination, that you can achieve incredible results. And that's great. And, let's be a little bit positive about it, because over the last month, any topic about COVID-19 wasn't a positive topic. But all of a sudden, what we can see now is that things are opening up slowly. We're getting clarity. There's clarity with education. People are now being told this is what the HSC is going to look like. And like yourself, Phil, I have now already pulled out my yearly planner, and I'm putting things in my diary for Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, New Zealand, right? I'm putting out things in there. Now, there's some of the comments coming in. Cam Brooks says, nothing like lockdowns to motivate fear and action in Australia and New Zealand. Well, you know what? We know that's life, isn't it, Phil? People do things to avoid pain and gain pleasure. And avoiding a lockdown ticks both those boxes, because I think people have been tired and lethargic, and then irrespective of the view that they had, people started to think, let's participate in the solution, not the problem. What is it that we can do to actually help the solution? So we're on the way.
It's a great motivator, Tom. It's a great motivator, nipping at your heels. People need to get stuff done. So at least we're going down the pathway. And one of the reasons why we're doing Real Estate Exposed, which is our second series, lockdown series. First one was What's Making Headlines, where we sort of, like the rest of Australia, try to work out what was going on. This time around, we sort of know what's going on. We just don't know when it's going to happen. This really allows us to keep a diary, a weekly diary about what's happening and way we're seeing the world and who's saying what's going down. And and what we think and feel about it. And on reflection, Tom, if I think back to last week versus this week, things weren't looking great. I imagine our tempo was pretty subdued. We're probably still talking about the problems ahead of us. You give it 1 week, how quickly things can change. We're talking about what next, what happens after lockdown. Now, you're talking about real estate, and I reflect to last week, Tom, you were pretty, from early on in real estate exposed, you were pretty bullish about a pretty strong selling season. 2 weeks ago, last week, you were a bit sort of more lackluster on it, going, oh, now, I can't remember exactly what you called it, but the real estate cycle isn't dictated by seasons now, it's dictated by health advice. Now, here we are again, and I think you might have changed your tune a little bit. How hot is real estate going to be now in spring? Is this it? If someone pulled the trigger, it's time to go.
I think so, Phil. And the reason why is all you need is to have a little bit of positive news to have a profound effect. It's a little bit like, throwing a stone, in a pond where you just throw something small and then you just see that it sort of goes outward. And that's what I think's happened. And I can pretty much tell you, and this is firsthand, as I open up my diary, Phil, I'm going to tell you that in the last 24 hours, I'm going to give you an update on my diary. On the 11th of September, I have 15 auctions scheduled, right? We're talking about, that's a full day. I mean, think about that,
you must
right?
Be after that, mate, online. You must be done.
Listen, it's, there's a lot of these coffees that I've had, right? And I do get dehydrated, so there's water, coffee. I've just got to get through. A big advantage, but Phil, there's no traveling, right? No traveling to get to them. Then we go to the 11th, again, 15. The great thing, Phil, it's one of the things. You know what? Guess what? We lost on-site auctions, but we picked up something else. The ability to do auctions every 30 minutes because you're just moving from Zoom link to Zoom link. And you lost your hammer, you picked up the wooden spoon. And once a week.
Mate, but I can't remember. I was watching someone on Saturday night, and it's normally when me and you sort of swap text messages after a couple of Vino Blancos, and or you have a red. And I was thinking I was with my wife or my daughter, and I went, have a go at this guy here. No, I was with my sister actually. Have a go at this guy. He's an auctioneer, and look what he's using for a gavel. My sister goes, why is he? And by the way, my sister lives at the same sort of area as us, so I'm not breaking down any lockdown stuff. Why is he using a wooden spoon? And we had a good old chuckle about the wooden spoon because my familiarity with the wooden spoon is getting hit over the backside of it from my mother when I was a kid. We used to call him Woody. So we had a good chat around your wooden spoon thinking you should be doing better, but mate, I'd make that gold plated or something or other.
Phil, I got to tell you, it works because what happens is people are used to, oh, here's the spoon, there's trouble, right? And guess what? I tell buyers, ladies and gentlemen, fair warning, when the spoon comes out, I'm calling 3 times and selling. And once it goes, it's over. And at one auction last week, I heard because the guy forgot to unmute. So often people forget to unmute in between bids. And he goes, Sally, quick, he's got the spoon out. Right? It came through the video. He's got the spoon out, quick, right? He didn't realise that he was not unmuted, So,
anyway, we digress. Tom, what's happening? How hot's the market going to be? Are we actually going to have a spring selling season? Yes or no?
We're going to have a spring selling season that's going to be called a summer spring selling season. What will happen is September will really move into October, right? So October will move into November. November will move into December. And December will move into January. So January won't be quiet. And if the border is not open between Queensland and the rest of Australia, potentially you're going to have a lot of real estate trading right through, obviously not Christmas Day, not New Year's Day, but you're going to see activity happening because it's repressed activity. Right now, let's go around the grounds. In Melbourne, if you're a buyer and you want to buy a home, you can't buy it. We saw on the weekend, Melbourne pulled off auctions from auction day, a massive figure. Off the top of my head, it was close to 60%. These homes were pulled off the market because no buyers can physically inspect these properties. What does that mean? We're off to the races as soon as Daniel Andrews says private inspections are okay. So, Phil, I just see the appetite high for buyers. I see the appetite high for sellers. When sellers know that there's going to be stock on the market, so a lot of them aren't selling now because they've got nowhere to go to. When they start seeing that there's properties to go to, they'll sell. And that's when you'll just see this incredible amount of turnover in real estate. And to top all that off, Phil, the availability and capability of buyers is at an all-time high because of interest rates. So we're just talking about brilliant conditions plus the attitude of people. The roaring 20s after the Spanish flu basically meant people felt bulletproof, courageous. Let's do it. Let's not stay here. Let's live our life. So people actually have a far more optimistic view. So that's what I think, Phil.
Well, I think a lot of people agree. People are going to get stuck in and strap yourself in if you're in real estate because it's going to be mad times. And for those who are tuning into this who are property investors, we don't need to give an explanation of supply and demand, but there's going to be a lot of buyers out there, and I think a lot more property is going to come on market. So whether or not that maintains equilibrium and positive price pressures, I don't know. We're going to have to see how that plays out, Tom, but no doubt we can connect in on that and get the first couple of weeks of this summer-spring selling season. Summer-spring selling season, 4 S's? Yeah.
Yes.
4 S's. And try and give some commentary around it. But I know, Tom, real estate is one thing that's going to emerge out of lockdown. And one of the sort of chats I've been having with a lot of people, and I'd like your insights on this, is what you're going to do once lockdown ends. And I want to finish this particular discussion today with that question. But if you've got any ideas about that right now, start sharing them in the chat. What's the first thing you're going to do when
I love it.
End?
Yeah, put it in. What will you do after the lockdown? And we'll cover that at the end. You and I will give up ours. So I'd love you to put it in there. Start thinking about it. But Phil, I'd love to talk, if we can, and the top 50 agents in South Australia. I mean, Phil, I got one of my clients I spoke to last night by message, Angelo Nicholas, who got number two agent for the REB in South Australia. And I got confused because automatically I thought, hang on, it's the top 100 agents, and then it said top 50. But now you've cleared it up, and maybe you can clear it up for all our viewers. What is the top 50 agents awards?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And I wanted to make sure if there was any confusion. So I think every single real estate agent in Australia would be aware of or familiar with the REB Top 100 Agents, which is the nationwide benchmark for excellence in real estate, peer-to-peer competition, Australia-wide. It is what everyone uses as a measure of how they're tracking. I'm sure, Tom, it goes into a lot of people's business plans. This year, I want to be number X on REB Top 100 Agents. I know a lot of organizations, in terms of their business planning and how they measure success, how many agents they have within the top 100 agents. So McGrath, for example, we know that's a key measurement they use. I know there's a lot of software platforms that like to pin their hat on, hey, we service X% of the top 100 agents. I think one of them is Agent Box, Tom. So this is the nationwide benchmark. We've been doing it now for a decade. And it is irrespective of who you work for, whether you're an independent, whether you're a boutique, whether you're part of a franchise network, whether you're part of an industry association, which one you're part of, whether you wear black, whether you wear white, it's largely irrelevant. You're put into the same pool. It's universal. That's the measurement nationwide. Some of the feedback that we've been getting over many years is that this is great, REB, but I operate in this particular location, and there's no way in the world I can compete with the Alexander Phillips of the eastern suburbs or your Toorak-based agents. I want to see how I compete against my immediate peers. So what we've done is we've launched this as an offshoot of the top 100 agents to actually give state-based rankings connected in with it. So what does it mean? It's exactly the same methodology as the top 100 agent. We use the same numbers, but it's allowing you now to be a big fish in a smaller pond. So we've launched it. It's coming out. South Australia was the first one we've released. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be announcing a number of the rest of the states. I'm really pumped about it, Tom. It allows people to see how they're faring against people in their immediate area, in their state, who have very similar market dynamics, nuances, buyers, habits, behaviours, the way the different markets operate. And I'm happy, Tom, to announce Stephen Knox as the number one agent in South Australia for the REB Top 50 agents. Good going, mate.
Listen, he's an incredible agent. I don't have much to do with Stephen Knox. I have a bit to do with their real estate office, Harris Real Estate, and Phil Harris, of course. But he's an incredible agent. He would have written over $2 million in GCI or thereabouts. You know, Adelaide doesn't have Sydney, Melbourne prices. Extraordinary effort. What I can tell you is this guy is a workaholic. His work ethic apparently is off the charts. No one that I know works what he does in terms of hours, and when he's at work, he's working. So big effort, you know.
Yeah, and this is testament to the reason why we've chosen to do state-based rankings, Tom. Everyone knows South Australia real estate is nowhere near the price points of Sydney-based real estate or New South Wales-based real estate. His average sale price, so Simon's average sales price, $590,000. That compares to when you go to the top 100 agents, the guys and girls in there who are leading the charge, they're in the multiple millions of dollars as their average sale price. So he's done 590,000 average sale price, Tom, $132 million of property sold for 224 properties. So you talk about him being a workaholic, he's moving quickly. 224 properties sold for 132 million at an average price of 590. Very, very different to the top 100 agents. So this is the reason why we're looking at a state-based level. Tom, you'd like this, and we've spoken about him before. Angelo Nicholas, Harris Real Estate, Adelaide, number 2. He's done exceptionally well. His average price, Tom, $631,000 for a total value of 117 million bucks. 186 properties sold. You know him well.
Yeah, I'm going to read a message from him last night. I really feel for him because in the message he sent me, he told me that he'd just come out of. You know what? It's going to take me ages to find this. Here it is. Because this morning I did a conference in New Zealand to 1,400 agents, and I have been tagged 500 times. So all these messages have gone in there. He's put down here, Tom, chemo treatment still happening every 2 weeks. I'm waiting to hear back from a doctor, blah, etc. I won't go into some of that stuff's personal and private. But guys and girls, you know, I want to let you know. And I say that, you know, obviously I've been touched by the subject myself. But we got a young guy here, 30 years of age, who's going through a cancer, you know, challenge, a big challenge, I might add. And, you know, he's doing the best he can with the cards he's been dealt. It's not his fault, but it's become his problem. But Phil, it's quite extraordinary because him to get number 2, and he's had the illness now, it is some time. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, it probably is close to 1 year. It's close to 1 year, you know, maybe 9 months, right? But what were his figures out of curiosity?
Yeah, I went through them. 117 total, 117 million value, 186 properties sold, average price, 631. And to another big comparison to the top 100 agents, look at this, a state-based level, 6.5 years in the industry, Tom. Like in the big scheme of things, he's a pretty new starter.
Listen, give me some more names. Any girls there?
I'm going to go through first of all, I'm going to have to say Harris Real Estate has absolutely killed it. Out of the top 5, 4 of their agents, Harris Real Estate. So the others, Tom, and I think some of these people and there's these guys and girls, and it's good to see there's girls here as well leading the charge. Arabella Hooper, Harris Real Estate Sterling, Kate Smith, Harcourt Smith, Western Adelaide, and Tom Hector, Harris Real Estate from Rest Rover. They round out the top 5, Tom. They're all real estate gym members?
All but one, and extraordinary efforts. Talk about Kate Smith for a moment. Ex-professional basketball player. She's about 6'4", right? Very, very tall girl. Had a bit of bad luck with injury in basketball, and then comes along and crushes it in real estate. Arabella Hooper, family girls, got a number of kids. Life balance has always been a challenge, but she's worked out how to do it. Tommy Hector, who I would probably say in the last 5-6 years would be the hottest agent around. This guy's consistently very, very strong. So congratulations to all of them. And, the comments that are coming through, it's good to see. Is there any others there at all, Phil?
Yeah, I'll run through them. Nick Parthros from Ray White, Western and Coastal Metropolitan.
Well done. Congratulations.
Anthony Fahey, Ray White, Sally Cameron, Toop and Toop Real Estate, Georgie Todd, Harris Real Estate, Rosemary, sorry, Rovers, I get your last name incorrect, Arachiro, LJ Hooker, West Lakes, Caitlin Fry, Mike Lowe, Taylor Bishop, Justin Peters, Thomas Crawford, Carly Frost.
Well,
I'm going to make the point, Tom. Great to see this female representation as the top agents in South Australia. I'm really encouraged by that. That's good to see.
Absolutely. We don't have to, in real estate, we don't have to worry about artificially, elevating female agents. They do that themselves with their results. Real estate, the great thing about real estate is when you're in a commission-based job, right, the results speak for themselves, right? The results, as Lisa says, Lisa Novak obviously is not in Adelaide. If she was, she'd be up there as well, one of the great agents. But she's saying, go the girls. But Phil, to sum off on this part of our conversation, you're doing Adelaide, done. You're going to do Melbourne. You're going to go through around the country. Will you do Sydney as well? You will. Even though you do the REB 100, you'll do Sydney as well. Absolutely. So these are all going to roll out over the next month or so, will they?
That's correct, Tom. And what you'll start seeing is just the different ways in which real estate changes across the nation. I'm just quickly flicking through some of the numbers here. Most people's numbers in terms of their average sales price is in the $300,000 and $400,000. You wouldn't even cut it. You wouldn't even get in there on the top 100 agents on that basis. There's only one person in this list, Tom, one whose average sales price is over $1 million.
So Phil, let's actually
South-Australian agents work harder, is what I'm saying, Tom. They work harder to make the same dough as your Sydney and Melbourne real estate agents.
I'm putting it out there. I reckon it's harder to sell a cheaper house than a dearer house. And I know that from my own experience as an auctioneer, because when I'm auctioning something out west on Zoom, I can see $1,000 and $2,000 bids really impact the buyer's pockets. They're on smaller salaries. It's a really big decision, right? Whereas when you move more towards the inner west or the city or the eastern suburbs, man, you're getting bids of $50,000, $100,000, and it's not that hard to actually negotiate with someone after auction and say, oh, listen, you've got to pay another $100. They'll say, I'll increase my offer by 75. You don't get that out at Campbelltown, right? So I've got to tell you, to the real estate agents working in the lower price points, and well done REB for recognising it, because I think for far too long that maybe the REB Top 100 wasn't giving enough recognition to the people like what you've just mentioned in Adelaide. And I'm sure those sort of things are going to pop up in Queensland. They're going to pop up in Perth, some of these.
This is why we do it, Tom. This is why we do it, so we can actually have these conversations. And I completely echo your sentiments. Selling lower priced property is harder, and it requires a different set of skills. And I think we should maybe explore that a little bit more. But we'll wind this up. But a quick shout out to Props, who have partnered with us to create the REB Top 50 agent. Now, Tom, vaccinations right now, so big numbers. They're big scores on the board. New South Wales, 1,200, 1,300 people is the run sheet. It's how people, whether or not they think it's a good day or a bad day, or it's under 1,000 again, isn't that good? When are we going to get, Tom? When are we going to get to a point where we don't report this stuff anymore? And let's take note, in places like Europe, Germany, for example, they've come out saying, we're not reporting it anymore. And by the way, if you want a COVID test, you've got to pay for it. They don't really care how many people are infectious in the community. They've gone the vaccination route. What they care about is whether or not they can help those people who need to be hospitalised, whether it's in normal wards or ICUs. Do you think that's the way we're going to go, Tom?
I do. I've stopped looking at the 11 o'clock press conference. I've stopped having a look, because the numbers are always going to be telephone numbers. And then, and Phil, interestingly enough, I do spend an hour or two each night studying COVID. I'm fascinated at at the medical literature, and I'm particularly looking at what's going on overseas, which is usually, just a bit of an insight into what will happen here. And it's really, really clear that countries overseas, and you've mentioned a few of them, have basically said, hey, everyone's going to get COVID. Now, this appears to be the new narrative in the world, that you will get COVID. You may get it whether you're vaccinated or not, that you will get COVID. But the chances are, if you're vaccinated, it's not going to be a big problem. And if you're not vaccinated, it most likely won't be a big problem, but it might be, right? But it can be. So if we know that information, you turn around and say what is the value of each day of having a scary telephone number paralyzing the confidence level of the community? Wouldn't it be easier to focus on things because if we know that most people that get the infection are not going to progress and die, most people won't it be better to actually turn around and say, we're changing the scorecard? The scorecard now will be how many people are in hospital and how many people have been vaccinated. What's our vaccination rate, right? If we start focusing on that, I think you get enough information, and in addition to that, you change the attitude and mood and sentiment of the people of the country for.
Oh, mate, I completely agree. And look for this clue. I haven't really thought too much about this, but obviously everyone checks in with this 11 o'clock update from the Premier. When is that going to stop? When is it just going to come normalised where every day we don't have a state-based Premier standing up going, this is how many cases we've got and this is what we're doing about it? Eventually, the narrative is just going to be so consistent, as in we are at 70, we're at 80% vaccinations. What more information does anyone need to know? That's the clue. When will that stop, Tom? Thoughts?
Well, listen, I think they should stop soon, and I think it's in their best interest, because I think if they got a corporate spin doctor and sat them down and said to them, hey, listen, Gladys, I don't actually think it's a great idea that you get your hair done every morning and you change your jackets and you appear that it's just business as usual for you while you're talking down a TV camera to someone in a 2-bedroom unit in Lakemba with no balcony on $700 a week, homeschooling 3 kids. I don't think that's a good look. Why don't we just alternate it a bit? Maybe do some of these Zooms from your home so you can actually show people that you're really with them, right? And why don't we actually turn around and just change it up a bit, and maybe turn around and have someone from a mental health there and saying, hey, I want to let you know this is what's happened with the statistics of phone calls into mental health services. This is what has happened with suicides. Because, Phil, listen, I mean, don't get me started. I got to tell you, I Googled this. I Googled the stats. There were 49,500 deaths of cancer in Australia in the last 12 months, right? There have been less than 1,000 people that have died of COVID. There have been 150 diagnoses of cancer for the 12-month period. Listen, the point is that what needs to happen is a more balanced perspective. And I do think, Phil, that we're heading there, bud. I can just sense there that we're taking reference of what's happening overseas, and you've indicated a couple of countries that essentially said, listen, we've got to accept that this thing is here. Let's just be worried about the real worry things here. Let's not freak everyone with telephone numbers.
Yeah. And look, I'm sort of pretty dialed into this, my wife even more so. A lot of people are asymptomatic when it comes to COVID. They don't even know they've got it, right? We're just got to get on. It's got to be normalised in many ways. And whether or not COVID should be normalised, look, it's here. It's with us. We've got to get used to living with it. You see Europe is advancing. Australia behind the 8 ball in terms of vaccination rate, Tom. We've spoken about how the different state premiers have operated, whether or not they got onto this Delta strain as fast enough. We were at a good chat about that. how the state government here in New South Wales is acted and behaved. That said, mate, they've done well in a vaccine rollout. I think you've got to give thumbs up to how they've gone about doing that. We are going the right way. I would have seen, and you would have seen it as well, Tom, a lot of the people out in the western suburbs of Sydney, the southwest Sydney, going, hey, Premier, to your point, she sits there at 11 o'clock and does her press conference. They reckon she hasn't been out west this year, mate.
Wow. Okay. Well, listen, that's not a smart move. That's not a smart move, because I've got to tell you, one of the intelligent things that you've got to do is visually show people. I think that's something that Jacinta Ardern did very well in various times. She would actually immerse herself with the people that were suffering, and it goes to show that, hey, I hear and I see where you're coming from. But Phil, on this point, I want to ask you, what's the first thing you're going to do when there's restrictions that are loose enough that you've got choices? What will you do? And I'd love to see what other people go around, type away what you're going to do. A lot of people. One guy said, "Man, he's hitting the pub." Right? He's hitting the pub. Now, I'll tell you, I'd like that too.
I reckon, Tom. Just thinking about this, I'm probably going to put it on 10 kilos, mate, because I'm going to be at an awards program every night for about 4 weeks in a row. Women in Real Estate, Australian Law Awards, Australian Broking Awards, Australian Defence Industry Awards. Mate, we've got a stacked up events calendar here in December, and I'll be at every single one of them trying to drink as little champagne as I possibly can and dodging the desserts and only eating the protein, mate. But that's what I'm going to be doing when lockdown finishes, and that's going to be my December. And then subsequent to that, I hope to take some time off, mate, with the family over summer when that's all behind me and relax and recharge.
Are you going to have it like? I'm not even sure about this. I'm not convinced that the borders are going to be open with Queensland. But Fardy says,
you'll probably be able to fly to bloody Bali before you can fly to Queensland at the moment.
That's a worry. That's a real worry. That's a real worry. To be able to fly there, or
Well, CEO Qantas is backing the fact that we'll be travelling. He's selling tickets internationally from December, so he probably knows something that we don't know. Get ready to get on the plane, Tom.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that story next week. It's emerging, and that is what we're going to do about the compulsory vaccination. This is a big issue in business, Phil. In real estate, is a very big issue. Alan Joyce and SPC have more or less said this is what we're doing, right? I've been told by someone who's, I better not mention the name, he's known, and he's basically said that Alan Joyce had no luck getting Scott Morrison to actually make it a law, compulsory vaccination. Scott Morrison said, mate, federal government does not do public health orders. We leave that for you to work out. He's gone off and said, this is what we're doing. Some real estate businesses are reaching out to me and they're saying, Tom, we don't know what to do. We don't want to infect our clients. We don't want to have a buyer or tenant take us to court that we gave them COVID. But on the same token, I've got to say to you, we're very worried because our staff are saying, don't force us to vaccinate. We're trying to get pregnant. This is an issue. There are people that are under 30 that are sort of saying, hey, I don't want to do it, right? But you're saying to me that you're going to force me to do it. We'll spend more time talking about it.
Mate, Fardy's going to get fit. He's going to go on a bay run and maybe say hi to Tom. You're a celebrity down that way.
Fardy, I've got good news for you. You can do it right now. I'll see you there in half an hour. We don't have to wait, Fardy. We don't have to wait till the lockdowns. You can do it. Though, having said that, Phil, I've got to tell you, the police have been on the bay run, and what they basically said is if you're walking, put a mask on, because they don't consider that to be excessive exercise. So Fardy.
What are the other punters saying, Tom?
Okay, let's have a look here.
Someone's going for a massage.
A massage. Go get a massage. Yeah. There's a few people here. They've come here before. They were talking about it. I'm having a look here. This guy here, pub's going to play OzTag. First season, getting my certificate of registration and hanging out and catching up with everyone, right? You know what? I got to tell you, Phil, for me, Mate, I'm looking forward to going back to Bikram yoga. I'm really looking forward. I was doing 4 or 5 days a week, and I did that for about a year, and then it's come to a halt. It's the one thing that I've missed. I'm looking forward to doing that. But of course, Phil, I normally eat out 3 or 4 times a week. Haven't done that. Looking forward. I think everyone loves a restaurant meal where someone looks after them and brings the food over to them, and they drink wine and they've got good company. Most people are going to want to go do that. So Phil, Tarrant, REB, Real Estate Gym, Real Estate Exposed, every week, every Thursday around 1:30.
Nice one, Tom. I'll see you again next time, mate.
Thanks a lot, Phil. Signing off.